let's see. I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Oh, we're already recording. Thanks, Rich. We're already recording. Good morning, everybody. We are going to be talking about Google Slides this morning, although I know that there's some chatting about last night's board meeting. So, feel free to vent and chat about that in the side. Once I'm presenting, I'm not going to see the chat, so it won't be distracting to me at all, as long as it's not distracting to you. There are a couple links thrown down in the chat right now. Our slide presentation link, and also our EdTech website. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. My goodness, I'm a little slow this morning. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and jump right in because I'm hoping to give you quite a bit of kind of work time this morning to think about your own slides. So I am going to just go ahead and get myself together and let's see. All right, so we're going to be talking about Google Slides this morning. I think Google Slides, if I had to pick one tool other than maybe a website for communicating with my students in terms of the student work side of things and the presentation side of things, I think if I had to choose one tool, I would definitely choose Google Slides. So I'm hoping that you'll see all the different ways that they can be used no matter what grade level you're at. Even if you're not using Google Classroom and you're not assigning work to students in that way. So if you're kindergarten, first, second grade, lower grades, I still think Google Slides are very useful because you can share them out as presentations as well. So, so we're going to be talking about them today, and I hope that you find some good uses for them. Most of you have probably seen these resources already. If this happens to be your very first PD session, there's a couple of tools for you that we've linked to here. If you click on any of these icons, once you go to your own copy of this slideshow, this will get you to a page where we're asking people to share what skills they are experts at so that you can find colleagues at your own site or colleagues that you know in the district who might be able to help you with a project or a question. So for example, if you're really great with Screencastify or if you've built a really awesome website, then you can look on this document and you can see some other people who feel really confident in that area and connect with them. This icon is just a link to our website. Hopefully you've been browsing it this week and are finding some good things on there. It will continue to grow and evolve and be updated all the time. Yesterday and Monday's PD sessions, slideshows and videos are uploaded on the appropriate pages. So for example, the Sites workshop that Rich did yesterday is on the Google Sites page. This one will be uploaded later today and it'll be on the Slides page. If you need us, you can reach out through this link. A lot of people are emailing, which is also fine, but we're really trying to streamline requests through the website so that we can just better keep track of all your questions. And also that gives us an opportunity to curate all the answers we've also given so that we can refer back to them in the future instead of having to search through a whole bunch of emails. So it helps us streamline our help to you. So that is, oh, my slide link doesn't have public access permission. I'm going to go in and change that right now. I'm going to stop sharing. So my, oops. All right, sorry about that. Well, it says that, oh, there we go. Anyone in Albany can view it, done. Try it now and let me know, give Rich a thumbs up or mention in chat. I think I've now shared it with anyone in AUSD, and I think a couple people might be using their own personal email or something else. So I'm actually going to say that anyone with the link can view it. And there's a little, there we go. That should be better. Hopefully, if you refresh, hopefully that will be better. I'm hoping. So let me know if that helped. All right, so back to the slideshow. What was I saying? Yeah, please direct your questions to our helpline. That would be great, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Elementary teachers, we have a Slack workspace that you can also visit and collaborate on. So today what I'm going to be talking about is Google Slides. And again, my favorite Google app, probably because of its versatility. So my first part of the presentation, I'm going to just show you a ton of examples. I'm going to go through those pretty quickly. Not to overwhelm you, but just to kind of plant in your head some things that are possible. And please don't worry at the beginning about the how-to, because I'm going to transition to that toward the end of the session. I'm going to be talking about all the different things that are possible on a Google slide, some possible uses, ways that you might use them in your classroom. And then we're going to transition into work time. And I know that there will be people here this morning that have no experience making a slideshow, and people that are more advanced. So at that point, if you'd like to, I'm going to be building a 3-slide template, getting to know me template, and I'll show you how I would use that with students. And I'm just going to completely start from scratch, so you can kind of watch the process of how I do that, if that would be helpful for you. And if that doesn't sound like it fits what you need at that point, anyone who's more advanced with slides, some other options would be to explore the examples that are shared in this slideshow. There's some videos and things embedded in here as well, so you could watch that for how-to steps about maybe some of the more advanced ideas. You could browse the website. There's a lot on the slides page that you could take a look at and see what's there. Lots of samples and templates and videos there too. Or you could just use that time to start creating your own slideshow of your dreams. So that's kind of how we're going to go this morning. So one way that I have used slides, I know a lot of us use slides, is just to simply present information. So not getting any student feedback at all, but just using it as a presentation tool like you would for, what's the other one called, PowerPoint or something like that. So if I were to, you know, when I'm doing my back to school night, presentation and I used a slideshow, I can use slides to present all the information. Instead of just looking at, you know, pages of a document, you can use this as your slideshow. Now more than ever, I think that this is a great tool for back to school night. I know that some grade levels are even going to work on a grade level or a department back to school night presentation, and a slideshow would be perfect for that. So that is one way. If you're giving information on, like if you wanted photos to guide your lecture, I had a guest speaker in class a couple years ago who was talking about women in San Francisco history when we were studying the gold rush, and she came in and this was her slideshow. Oops, I don't know. And I don't know what's going on there. I must have thrown away a copy of this. So, but anyway, you can see on the side here that she just used photos as her guide to talking to the students. And same with this one, it was an art lesson. And so it's just to present information. There's some good advice about presentations down here. Things to think about when you're creating your slides. So you can take a look at that. There are Slideshows can also be used as a great way for students to show what they've learned. So they can just create their own slideshow. Group projects. This was a project from last year where students had to create a pencil company, and they had to think about the resources that were used to create a pencil. And so this group just used a slideshow to present where each resource came from. And then to make they had to do kind of a sales pitch to get funding for their company. And so this was students creating this. Another idea is this was a book jigsaw. We were reading, what's it called? You know, the one with the, I'm blanking this morning, but we were reading Seeds of Change. And so each group that read about one of the seeds would create a slideshow about what they learned. So this team was working on sugar, and they made their slideshow. So another great student presentation, group project, or individual student project. So that's another idea. Those were all completely 100% student created. Those groups of students opened up a blank slideshow and completely started on their own with blank slides and made it what they wanted it to be. You could also provide students with a template, and that's going to guide them with the information that they share. And so these are lots of ideas of how you can do that. You would create a blank slideshow, leave the spaces where you want students to add information, and then you could assign that template either to individual students or make a copy for groups of students and share it, their copy just with them. So this was a picture book author study. And so I made the template where there was a blank up here for the author's name. I put in the text box and the photo, not his photo, but a space for a photo. I put in a table that had these titles, but everything else was blank. And the students then filled in the information that I had asked them to fill in. So they were provided with a template by me. Another one that we did, was the Silver Linings slideshow last spring when we came home, and I gave each student this template to record their silver linings that they were finding while they were learning from home. And so they were just given with a cover. They could change the photo if they wanted to, and they were given blank slides, and I asked them to write here and to add a photo here of things that they were finding were silver linings. And I linked here in the directions to my own slideshow so that they had a sample of what to do. And then we were able to share those at the end of the year and really talk about how learning from home had some nice benefits to it for us. And so here's mine. And let's see, all the baking and all the drives I went on, and working from my porch swing occasionally, and taking walks on the golf course that was closed. But this template was provided for them, and I just forced a copy out to each student on Google Classroom. So templates are another great way to go where you can guide their learning. I've never done a choose your own adventure. This was created by someone else, but slides are perfect because you can link from one slide to any other slide you want. And so writing some sort of choose your own adventure would be great on slides as well. So tomorrow there's going to be a workshop all on this very particular thing. So I won't spend a ton of time here today, but HyperDocs are more kind of dynamic lesson planning where you are using slides or a site or docs to share information, link to resources, package kind of a lesson or even a unit, all within whatever it is that you share for your students. So I'll just share with you this one my fifth graders did on slavery in the spring. And that was really hard to not be with them when we were studying this topic, but I modified a teaching tolerance unit and kind of turned it into a more interactive slide deck. So I'm not gonna lie, it took a lot of time. I did this over spring break, and it took like one of my whole days of spring break. So they can be time consuming, but now I have this slideshow, the blank template I could use year after year after year. So it's a lot of work kind of at the beginning, but then you know, if I were to be teaching 5th grade again, even if we were in a classroom, I could use this slideshow again as kind of my guide for the unit. So I have students, you know, linking to documents, posting thoughts on a Padlet, moving their way through videos and questions and responses, and doing vocabulary, and all of it is embedded in this, looking at maps and describing it, and I can embed links and maps and articles all within this slideshow, and I can give each student a blank template of this work, and then they're doing their work here. Again, if you're interested in these more kind of dynamic lessons, I would recommend coming to HyperDocs tomorrow. There's huge, huge, huge libraries of these that are already created, and tomorrow we'll really be talking about searching what already exists, making copies for your own use, and modifying them to fit your needs. One of the really big things about EdTech we were talking about yesterday is the sharing element of it. It's not as much of a kind of teachers pay teachers philosophy, but it's more of a teachers give teachers philosophy. And there's a huge amount of sharing that goes on. And so there's so much out there that you could already, that you could use. One of my favorite things to do, I call the whole class slideshow. And I've done a workshop on kind of what I call the power of the shared slideshow. I presented it at an EdTech conference kind of thing. So that workshop is posted here if you're interested in watching the slide presentation I did about that. A whole class slideshow is basically where you are, and I link to the template here so you can grab it, and it'll force you to make a copy. And then you would just, every time you wanted to do one of these, you could just recopy this. But basically, it's just a blank presentation template where you have an assignment description, you have a table of contents for all of your students, and you have to go in and change the names of your students here, which you can do by editing. And we can talk about that, or I can help anyone with that. And then this links students to their slides. For younger students, I might just delete this table of contents page altogether, and I would write their names in instead of number 1. It would have a name, and I'd ask them to flip through and find their slide and just work on that slide. Doing a group presentation like this requires a lot of talk ahead of time about collaborative work and respecting each other's slides. And, you know, I relate it a lot to things that they can relate to in the classroom. You wouldn't walk over to someone else's paper and just scribble on it or write on it or change it in any way. And that's what someone's slide is in a slide deck. So we do a lot of that. So I have lots of samples here of how I've used a whole class slideshow. Oops, I wanted to, oh, this one's not linked because it has student photos, but if anyone's interested in this one, maybe reach out to me and I can share it with you in a more one-on-one kind of thing. I just didn't want to videotape with students' photos on here, but it basically looks like this. This is what my slide looks like. And if anyone wants kind of a template of this for the beginning of the year, it's a great thing to do. My students picked beads out of a bowl, and depending on what color beads they picked, they had to answer these different questions that matched the colors. And then they created a slide that talked about each of those questions and told us a little bit about themselves. And I inserted their first day of school photos there onto the slideshow. We did this on the first day of school, and so last year and the year before. And so by the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day on day 2, we already had this presentation that we could look at together. It gave every student in my class a voice, and it you know, became something that we could refer back to. We watched it again on the last day of school and saw how some things had changed. So so that is one thing you could do as a getting to know you thing. Another way I've used it is just, what do you think could happen next at a transition point in a book where we're really not sure what's going to happen. Then this has everyone's names. And if you click on any of those names, it's going to take you to that student's slide. And then this student wrote, if this was from My Brother Sam Is Dead, if he tells his father, if he keeps a secret, what do you think is going to happen? And what I really love about this in the classroom and with online learning is just that it gives a voice to every student. Those students that might not raise their hands or might not talk during a Zoom meeting have a place to put their thoughts, and then you can facilitate a discussion as you flip through and you see what did each student say. You could even share this slideshow, ask people to read each other's and comment on them, or ask people to then do an assignment where students write down commonalities or differences. So lots of opportunity for things you could do in the whole class slideshow. Again, you can browse this during work time or later on, but oh, this one too, I haven't used it this way, but I think this might really be helpful for online learning. 3 things you learned today, 2 things you want to explore more, and 1 question you have. Again, you can make a copy of this, click on it from the slideshow, go to File, and make a copy, and you're going to have you could do entire presentation or just selected slides, and you could have this to use. And if you share this slideshow with each student, you could either put their names on it, or you could just assign this slide to students and have them turn it into you, so you can flip through what each student thought about the day. So lots of ideas there for you. This template has a single slide per student, and this template has 2 slides per student. So you could decide which one was the most appropriate. I haven't done a ton of this, but I love this idea of interactive slides. So I just wanted to show you some of the options, even for kindergarten or TK, drag and sort. So a slide where you can just drag and sort. Students could sort things in any way they want. You can put things off to the side of a slide, so students can, in the whatever way they think about it, they can sort, all the circles or all the big or all the blue or whatever it is. And so, so lots of ideas for that. I love this one. I've used this one. I haven't used this one with students. I've just personally done it many times myself. But this one is where you build a snowman, and it starts you with this blank snowman, and you write about your snowman, and then you can teach students. This is a great, why are all my things in the trash? I don't understand. This one has, you could teach students, this would be a great one for teaching students about the features of slides, because you could teach them about copying and pasting. So you could teach them that they could grab these eyes, copy them, go back to this slide and paste them on, and they get to add all these features to their snowman. It's pretty adorable. So you can, in any of these, file, make a copy. There's Jeopardy games. There are a life cycle of a butterfly. This one has, there's just so many options. And to be honest, I haven't even, there's amazing things out there that other teachers have done. And so this one highlights the different stages, and so you can see all the different ways you can use slides. It's pretty amazing. So if this one's really cool, it's talking about, it's a more middle school or high school, upper grade, middle school, high school, there's this whole video on how you can slowly reveal a photo by having that photo embedded on your slide and cover it up with boxes that are black. And then as you uncover the boxes, have a discussion or have students responding to, what do you see now? Okay, how does this change your perception of what's going on in this photo? Very cool video. So I did that. And then this link has tons of manipulative slide samples. So a whole library of them. You can do flipbook animation. It's overwhelming. So I've done a million slideshows and I still get overwhelmed when I look at this because there's so much more I want to do. A few words about sharing. Don't be afraid to share. And the way I like to think about it is that the more teachers you inspire with your things, the more students that are benefiting from it. So I know, and I understand why teachers pay teachers exist. We do the work. And so we, feel we should be compensated for the work that we're doing. And I completely respect that. On the other hand, I just really feel that my ultimate goal is that I want the most number of students to be benefiting from the work that I'm doing, and I want to be helping my colleagues as much as possible. So I tend to have a not very territorial philosophy about the stuff that I create, and but I do think that it's really nice, and it's kind of protocol to give credit. So you'll notice that if I, like my classroom presentation yesterday, I pretty much lifted from my friend Lori, who's an ed tech coach in West Contra Costa, and I gave her credit at the beginning of the slideshow, and I thanked her for, sharing it with me. And of course, I asked her first. But you'll find lots of things online where you can't track that person down and ask them. And usually if it exists online, then you can make a copy of it. I would just give credit to the original owner. You want to set your privacy to view only. So if you see something that you like, you want to make a copy of it instead of asking for access to someone else's copy. So you can always just go to your own file menu and make a copy for yourself. That will save everybody a whole lot of time. If you have any live links, if there are outside documents, if there are Padlets, forms, if there are videos embedded in the one that you create, you probably want to make those not live links, not to videos, but to, if you've attached a document that you want your students to go write on, or a Padlet form that you want them to go write on, you want to make that link not live, because if somebody else uses your slideshow, you don't want their students linking to your documents. So that's one thing to keep in mind. We've been talking this week about how to force a copy. So if you share your slideshow with someone, you can go up here to this URL. And if you see, if I go to the very end of the address, you can see at the end, there is this backslash here, or forward slash. I don't know which one's back and which one's forward. I guess that's a forward slash. You go and you see that this word edit is here after that slash. If I were to click right here and delete everything from that edit on and write the word copy, and then I highlight this link and I share it with you, you're going to be forced, when you click on that link, you're going to be forced to make a copy of this presentation. So that's another great trick for sharing your things with other people. If you're creating a template, like the ones I showed you that have blanks for students to do work in, unless it's a template that you're giving to a particular group, like the 5 students that were reading about sugar or something like that, or the 5 students that were working on a particular author, then you're going to want to make a copy for each student. So, and I just do that by attaching it on Google Classroom and sharing it there, so that they each have their own copy. Before, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute, and I'm going to ask, let's see. Oh, Jessica. Jessica's here. She's our adaptive technology guru, leader. And I'm going to ask her to talk for a minute about accessibility issues. It's something that we're going to add a page about on our website, but I just wanted her to give her a little time to talk about, if you are creating slideshows, some things you could keep in mind so that they're accessible for all students.
Hi. Yeah, so some of the things, one of the things I want to point out first is always thinking about, in anything that you're creating, always thinking about accessibility first, because it's easier, with the, like in universal design principles, if you make something accessible in the beginning, then you don't have to go back and fix it or find something that, if you have a student who needs, for example, if you have a student who needs large print because of vision, if you just start out by, when you're making your sides, make sure that the font that you use is nice and large, so so that all students can read it. You all will have new students this year, so that's also something that you may want to think about when you are meeting your new students, is making sure you get a sense of what accommodations your students will need. So with slides, it's actually pretty easy, and I will be adding a lot of information about how to make things accessible, or some simple tricks, like if you do Command plus or Control plus, it'll enlarge the screen to make something visible for, if you have, for example, I know like a lot of if you embed something that has small print, you can make sure that your students that need larger print know how to do that, Control plus. And another thing that I think that doesn't really have to do with vision, but does have to do with processing, is when you look at your pages, make sure that they're not too cluttered. There's not, sorry, my dog there's a cat outside. Make sure that the information has a lot of space, it's not too cluttered, and it has space around it, so it's easy for the eye to move around. And then also be mindful, like in the beginning of the year, when you're kind of checking in with your students, be mindful of something like, if they're struggling, make sure it's not because they're not able to access what's going on. And then, of course, if any of you have students that do have significant disabilities, I will be there to help you customize things further than just like some simple accessibility. And again, I will have Jen and Richard will have a little, I'll give you like a little checklist, so that when you're looking at stuff, you can just a simple checklist to see what is accessible and what needs help. And then you can always contact me if you have any questions, or if you have any students that you feel like are having trouble accessing what's happening, or if you want to check with me and to look at something to see.
Awesome. Thanks so much. All right, I think what we're gonna do right now is, Rich, if maybe you could hop in and help me with any questions, because then I think we might kind of divide up, and people that wanna kind of follow along my thought process as I create a new slideshow, kind of go through the whole process, you can certainly watch me do that. If you'd rather jump into the presentation and look more at samples and look online and watch videos, that's fine as well. But I want to make sure before we split up and kind of do what we're going to do during this workshop time, if there are any questions I can answer for everybody.
Okay, so first one, how do you transfer slides from either PowerPoint or LibreOffice to Google Slides without loss of animation, formatting, color shifts, fonts, etc.? Are there apps that help make this go smoothly? So that's one, and then the other more kind of predecessor to that would be, how do you make that conversion in the first place? So how do you convert it, and how do you convert it without losing formatting?
So I have to be honest, I don't know a lot about that. I've been a Google file for my whole teaching career, so I don't use PowerPoint or Microsoft Libre. I know that it from your Google Drive, you can upload a PowerPoint and convert it to slides. I don't know what gets lost in the translation there. There might be other people that can speak to that more.
Yeah, one person said that if you have a PowerPoint or a doc file, changing formats when uploading your Google Drive, it's because that file might be converting to a G Suite version. To fix that, from your Google Drive, click on the gear and go to Settings, General, Convert Uploads, and make sure that Convert Uploads is unchecked. So apparently there is a place where you can go into the settings to make sure that it is converting properly. Let me see what the next person said. So, for whatever that's worth, check that out.
And again, that's when I would honestly, I would just Google how to, how can I change my PowerPoint to a slideshow, to a Google slideshow, without losing animations and things.
Okay. Next question is how to make sure kids don't alter the template. So there are a couple of questions about that. Is there a way? A follow-up to that, is there a way that you can have all kids add a slide to one big slideshow and not have the ability to change anybody else's slides? I've experienced adding all slides to one viewable slide, and it took forever.
Yeah. So I do a couple of things. I mean, I usually don't use that giant, for me, for 4th and 5th graders. And this probably goes for any grade level, to be honest. I usually don't use that whole class template as is until like maybe halfway through the year, when we've done a lot with slides already, when we've done a lot of digital citizenship work, when we've built a lot of, community, and when I've kind of instilled in them, and I've put the fear in them that I can see the changes that anyone has made on anyone's doc. I have the revision history. And if you're changing someone's slide, I know it's you that changed that slide. And I will take away your Chromebook for, or whatever. I mean, you can't do that while they're at home. But so I do a whole lot before I just throw a shared slideshow out there. Hopefully when they're working in smaller groups, there's a little more accountability to each other, and they're not really messing with each other's slides. But we do a whole lot of talking about that at the beginning of the year. So what I usually do is assign one single slide, and then copy and paste those slides into a larger presentation to present to them. And if you do assign a single slide from Google Classroom, it's actually fairly quick and efficient and easy to just, from your Google Classroom where they've turned in their work, open up each student. When you're in a slideshow, and I'll share my screen again really quickly. When you're in a slideshow and you're in the, I want to exit. I don't know why it's, there we go. When you're in a slideshow or you have a student slide open, you can highlight it over here on the left-hand side, and you see how slide 2 is yellow. If I do Command C, and then I had my group slideshow, let's say I had a group slideshow open in this tab, I can just click Command V, and I can copy and paste. And then I would go back to my Google Classroom, click on the next student, grab their slide, click over here, Command V, and post it in. So that's kind of how I handle it at the beginning until I feel, if I ever feel this class is ready for kind of diving into a bigger full class slideshow. Now, that said, even without, intentionally wanting to sabotage someone else's slide, there are things that will change the theme or the background color or whatever. And it's happened, it does happen where all of a sudden everyone's like, my background's blue, because one person clicked blue background for the entire slideshow. So, those things are going to happen if you do choose to go that route. But I do tend to, for half the year at least, copy and paste slides into a group shared show.
So just to confirm with that, so they each get their individual show, and you are copying a slide from their show into your class slide, and that continually updates as they update theirs because they're linked together.
Well, I usually don't do that until they've turned their slide in. So okay. I would do that like when slides are turned in and done, then I would paste it into a presentation that I would then use to share with the whole class.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's actually a question for Jessica. The question is, will we be told if you have been working with one of our students in previous years?
Yeah, if you have a student that has an IEP, you will be getting a, an IEP at a glance. Um, I, I'm assuming that my job will kind of rev up quite a bit this year because there's going to be a lot of students that are probably going to need more supports when they're at home. So feel free. I'm going to put my email address in the chat. Because I would encourage you all to think about if you have a student that's not attending, not physically, but like not able to, not doing their work or having trouble doing their work. I mean, always the first thing to think about is what's the barrier? Why aren't they accessing their work? I mean, especially because I know you don't know these students, you don't know what their past work production is. And if you have, and I will definitely look through all of the students that I have or that I've worked with. Pretty much if you have a student that has an IEP, I've worked with them because I do a lot of push-in with the classes all across the district. So I work from preschool all the way to the transition class. So if you have a student that has an IEP or a 504, I work with 504 students too. I've probably worked with them or worked with their case manager. So, but it's also a good idea to like think about like the principles of universal design for learning. You may have one student in your class that actually has a disability that prevents them from seeing things that are in small print. But I guarantee if you enlarge that print, there's at least 5 or 6 more students that's going to make it easier for them to learn. So just kind of be thinking about access. And I know it's really hard. We're doing this all last minute and you want to get that information out there. And there's so many other things to think about. And I want to be helpful for all of you, and I want to, no judgment. We're all doing this for the first time. I'm doing a lot of this for the first time. I'm struggling to figure out, all of these things. What is accessible? How can I help make things accessible that we're using? I have going back to the screencasting. There's a lot of that's not accessible as far as reading materials. Some of our tools that we use for our students that have screen readers can't do that with a recorded video. So don't feel pressured. Just kind of keep it in mind. Thinking about. And I know that's more than you asked for, but I just want you to know that I'm here for support for the students. So that really means any student, any student in your class, because I guarantee that if one student is struggling, at least 5 or 6 more are having that same issue. So, and feel free, I'm going to put my email right here. Feel free to contact me anytime. Thanks.
Thanks, Jessica.
There's another question about so the other day after our first day of presentations, Marie sent out an email with links with our slideshows, and somebody was wondering whether that's going to happen the rest of the week. Unfortunately, Marie is the only one that has access to that kind of staff email blast, and Jen and I don't. But let me just say that every single slideshow that we'll be using this week is already on our EdTech website. The only thing that's not on there is video. So if you want to look at the slideshow from our presentations tomorrow, they're already on the appropriate site. So if you want to look up Screencastify, you want to look up Google Slides, Google Classroom, you can find those slideshows on our EdTech website. So I don't think I'm going to ask Maria to keep sending the site. If Jen want to type in our EdTech, or I could, our EdTech website.
And I'll just share my screen again and just kind of give people a little tour of where you could find those things. So let's say I missed the Google Classroom. The Google Classroom presentation yesterday. You can it's under Google. So over here, I could go to Classroom. And on that Classroom page, we've kind of set up every page most pages to have the same format just to make things easy to find. And so at the bottom of each page is going to be guided instruction and PD. So this is yesterday's Google Classroom slideshow that I used and the video recording of our discussion. So some people just like to flip through the slides and look at that on their own, and some people really like to see the video itself. So that's totally up to you. If you missed the one on Docs and Drives, and that one is going to be down here. And this was presented on Monday, and the slides are there and the video is there. My internet's just taking a minute to load, but they're there. And then there's a live presentation from last spring. I don't know, I might delete it, especially with that unattractive photo that's at the beginning of the video, because it's basically the same thing I talked about now. So instead of having two videos up, so you can always find them there. The other thing that's helpful to know about our site is that if you are on the homepage, if you're on any page, there's a search bar. So if I wanted to see Drive, I can type the word Drive, and it's going to take me to all the places on this page where you can find things about Drive. So that's another tool to use.
And another question is, just to confirm, there's no way to lock slides from student use, right? If it's an editable slide, there's no way to lock everybody but one student or anything like that.
Not within one slideshow. I mean, it's similar, but that would almost be like locking sections of a document for one student to edit, but not another. I mean, a slideshow is really another version of a document. It's just a different way to present the information. So the sharing settings, the privacy settings are going to be the very same as for a document or a spreadsheet or a form. So all the slides in one slideshow are going to be editable and accessible for all the students. Yeah.
Gotcha.
This is actually a really great question. I'm going to read it and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. Is there a way to make the videos of this week's PD adjustable for speed so we can make them play faster?
You can do that once we put them on YouTube, for sure. You can do a playback speed on YouTube, and we're trying to figure out the best place to house all of our PD stuff on YouTube. So hopefully that'll be available soon.
Are you saying on YouTube you can play at double speed?
Yeah.
Do you want to show them that? Is that possible? You
yeah,
pull something up. You're not sure where it is.
What's that?
I could ask the next question while you're trying to pull that up if you want to.
Yeah, let me find it first,
Okay.
not share my screen and find
Yeah,
something.
sure, yeah. Let's see. How does one share in presentation mode so students can't see the upcoming slides? And I'm not really sure the intent of this. Patricia Burns asked that, but I will say that if you click there's two ways to present as you're teaching a class. You could either, from your Google slide, just press the present button. You could also take the URL and at the end, type the word present there, and then it'll just show on it won't fill up the whole screen for you, which I think is provides a little more flexibility. Maybe, Jen, how about I show that real quick while you're looking?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, let me find one. Okay. So what I mean is this. Here is a Google slideshow, the one I'm going to present on forums today. At the top of the address bar, there's this long, nasty URL, right, with all these letters, numbers, and symbols. And hopefully you can, let's see if I can expand. I want to make this bigger, hopefully. Or does that just make the page bigger? I don't know. Okay, didn't do anything. But if you notice these, go back to the first or the last / right before the edit word. I'm going to delete everything from there forward. And then I'm going to click the word, or I'm going to type in the word present. And at this point, I can either double click and copy and paste this entire thing, or if I just press enter now, it's going to put this in this present mode where it doesn't consume my whole screen. I can still access other tabs without going out of the presentation mode. So I can now just click on this and it'll just move forward. and yet I still have access to my other tabs. Whereas if I instead had just clicked the present button, it would have, let me show you what happens when I do that. If I just, from here, click the present button, give me 1 second, please. It consumes the whole screen, and I then don't have access to my tabs without hitting escape and getting out of it. My computer's a little slow in loading it. Sorry. Anyhow, that's the difference. And the same trick that I just showed you for doing that is the one that Jen showed you as well for forcing somebody to copy something. If you type
Yeah,
the
you
word
can do
copy
that
in.
for present or for copy. Yeah. And so basically I don't want to take the time to like go over to YouTube and because I couldn't do it when you were sharing your screen, it wouldn't let me then keep, because I was sharing your screen, couldn't keep going on my screen. But basically there's a little gear at the bottom of a video on YouTube. And if you click the gear, there's a playback. It says playback, and you can choose, you know, to watch that video as fast as you would like. And I totally like that feature, especially for listening to me blab for an hour. So for sure that could be really helpful to watch these faster. I think right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my.
We got another couple.
Oh, sorry, there's more questions.
Couple of questions, yeah. Is the school going to collect and disseminate information about student access to internet and devices, or will we do that for our classes?
You know, to be honest, I have to say I'm not quite sure, and maybe somebody that's been communicating more either with their leadership teams or sites. I'm kind of removed right now from any specific school site, so I don't know if there's been talk about how that information is going to be gathered.
And then one other question is, how do you lock things into master view?
Don't know. Elaine?
I can speak to that because Elaine can jump in, or yeah, if you go, Elaine's saying go to view and you click master. What that does is that if you want some things on your slides that can't be touched, imagine that, let me do something. Imagine that you want a background. So if you inserted an image on your slide and you shared it with your students, they could move it around, right? They could slide it around, they could delete it, they could resize it. If you go to view and you go to master and you create a master copy that has that image on it, or you could insert text on it, when you share that slideshow with the students, then they can't touch that. So for example, if you wanted to make a document with, let's say, there's a daily journal prompt, right? And your lead screen is your journal prompt with a date and maybe a picture on there, and the subsequent screens are your student screens. You could make the first page a master within master, and they can't resize or change your journal prompt. They can only change, and the reason they can't change it is it's essentially the new background for the screen. It's like the background image that you've chosen for the screen. And you can create a number of these templates within a document. And so definitely check that out. That is something known as an there's something called interactive notebooks where you can do that with. But definitely, I think that is a useful tool to have. If you're creating a Bitmoji classroom, that's what they recommend as well. You could either screenshot your background image so that it can't be moved around, or you could set it as a master. So have a master of your classroom background, a master of your living room background, and then when you move things around in your Bitmoji classroom, those things will never move. And so I would say you could, on YouTube, just Google how to set up the master view, or we could try to throw, as we come across these ideas, and if it's really easy for me or Jen to screencast a how-to or look up one up, we're happy to do it and put that together. So just throwing that out there. So for the master view, you go on the slide screen, you go to view and you hit master, and anything you alter on the master stays permanent. And then later on, when you go to add new slides, you click apply layout and you choose which master you want, and it'll apply that layout as a background. Okay.
And I just wanted to, I saw Jacques' question come up about once you've rolled out a slideshow to students on Google Classroom, can you edit the master that you've sent out? There's a great video on interactive notebooks that I posted to the site, what are we doing today? To the slides, page on our site. There were teachers that were emailing us and asking if you could do kind of like a journal, but that you could add prompts to over time, and students would see the changes you made, which is kind of tricky when you're handing out a slideshow to students on Google Classroom. There is a way to do that so that you can make updated changes to your version, your template that you gave them, and that those updates will roll out to the students that got your presentation. And so that video, I mean, it would take a while to explain how to do that. I think the best way to see how to do that is this woman who made an amazing video to show you. So that video is linked on the slides page if you're interested in that. So I think right now we only have about 20 minutes. So what I'd like to do is just share my screen again and kind of talk you through. I'm gonna make, it's getting simpler by the minute. I said 3 slideshow, but I might even just do 2 slides and kind of talk you through what I would do. Let's say I wanted to have my students create a 2-slide slideshow about themselves as homework the first week of digital learning. So I'm going to show you exactly what I would do if I wanted them to do that from start kind of to finish. If that doesn't apply to you, then you can go if you like, or go to the link to the presentation and browse slides, or visit the website, or whatever you'd like to do. What I would do if I wanted my students to create just a 2-slide slideshow is I would first make a template. And so what I would do is I would go to my drive and I would click, and I know I'm talking kind of quickly, but this will be recorded. And in the interest of time, you can go back and watch again. I would make a new slideshow and I would call it, when I get my new slideshow, it kind of defaults to this setting for the slide, and I can change that if I want to. There's a little button over here, the little arrow that is next to the plus button. You can change what that slide looks like. So you can use any of these templates they've already made, and there's a blank slide template as well. So I'm gonna just go ahead because, again, because of time, I'm gonna keep it as it is. And I would call this, let's see, introducing me. And I'm gonna call this my template. And then I'm gonna start to create what I want everyone's slideshow to look like. So on this first one, I'm going to give them a box where I want them to put their name. And so I'm gonna just put name there. And then I'm going to, I want their name to really stand out. So I'm gonna put a border around that box, and there's a border thing right here. So I'm gonna make a border, and I'm gonna make that border a color. And they're gonna be able to click in this box and change that to their name. And I'm going to add some instructions in this little box. I'm gonna tell them, please delete this box and insert images that tell me all about you. Favorites, special places. And again, you guys, this isn't really what ideally what I would do, but I'm feeling a little crunched for time. So I'm just trying to kind of give you the overview. So, again, 3rd graders might not know how to insert images here. So I might want to include a little instructions about what that means. I'm gonna assume that a lot of students, they're pretty intuitive, and a lot of them have used these tools before. So most students, I feel like at this point, would be able to add images, but maybe that's a wrong assumption. But anyway, I'm gonna add that box. I'm gonna put a little border around it so they know they're gonna delete that box, and they're going to insert images. I'm going to add a new slide that's just a blank. I'm going to add a new slide that has a title and a body. And I'm just going to say, what would you like us to know about you? And then they can click in this box and they can tell us about themselves. I'm going to keep it just super simple. I'm going to tell you a couple of other things just that are kind of the nuts and bolts. If I want to change the order of my slides, I can use this box to rearrange things. That line will let me rearrange the order of slides. And so, so that's really helpful. That's really helpful there. If I want a theme to my slideshow, I want to jazz it up a little bit. Over here on the side, you can see there are themes, and those are right here if that box isn't open for you. And if I want them all to kind of fit a theme like I've done on my presentation, then they're all going to have this kind of similar look to them. And on our slides page, there's also great websites where there are all kinds of templates for presentation themes on Google Slides that you can use. So I'm going to leave it at that, right? And I'm going to leave it just like that. And then what I would do for my students is I would go to my Google Classroom. I would go to my Google Classroom and I would create an assignment, and I would attach this as an assignment for my students. So I'm going to create an assignment, and I'm going to call it Getting to Know You. I'm going to add from my Google Drive. Again, I know I'm talking really fast. And I'm going to, luckily it usually posts just my most recent stuff right here. Here's my slideshow. I'm gonna add that to the assignment, and I'm gonna make sure I change this to make a copy for each student. That way they're all getting their own. They're not just all adjusting one template. Maybe I wouldn't even call it template because that would be confusing to the students. So I'm gonna do that again. I'm just gonna call it Introducing Me. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to add my slideshow. They're each going to get their own copy. And when they're make a copy for each student, you can choose just certain students. You can choose multiple classes. I only have one class. You can give it a point value or make it ungraded. You can, I definitely recommend giving it a due date so that it shows up for you, and you can give it a category, right? So those are all, we covered all that stuff on during Classroom yesterday. So that's what I would do for the students. They're each gonna get their own slideshow that they're gonna turn on. I would also, to be honest, actually, I'm gonna back up a little bit. And I'm gonna say that on this main slide, okay, let me back up a little bit. I would, at this point, I would make a sample so that kids could see an example. And so I would go to File, and I would make a copy of this entire lovely slideshow presentation. And I would change the title to be Ms. G. Right? So now I'm making a copy for myself. I'm leaving this template the way it is, and I'm making a copy for myself that I can now go in and change. And so I would jazz this up, and I would write my name in here. I would say, oh, okay, she wants me to delete this box and insert some images. So here's where, you know, if you haven't made slideshows before, insert is a great tool menu to use because there's all kinds of things you can insert here. When you want to add a new box, if I'm like, oh, you know what, I want to tell her that my favorite word is rebar. Right, so I'm going to add a text box so that I could do that. And then, you know what, I'm going to search the web for a photo of rebar. And I have no idea why rebar is my favorite word, but it is. Ooh, nice picture of rebar. I'm gonna pick it and I'm going to attach that. And now this picture is way too big. It's gonna take up my whole slide. So I'm gonna make it really small and I'm gonna move it over here. And they give you great like kind of centering tools and guidelines. Now I wanna insert an image of, what else do I love? I love waterfalls. So I'm gonna find a great picture of a waterfall. Now watch what happens if I go like this with my image just from one side, it's gonna distort the image. So what I wanna do is I wanna go to a corner and I wanna change the dimensions of the whole image so the image doesn't get distorted. Let's say I wanna insert a video of my favorite song. I'm gonna look for Old Ties and Companions, Mandolin Orange, and I'm gonna find a video of them playing my favorite song, and I can embed that YouTube video and again, change the size right there, right? So I'm gonna jazz up this page as much as I'd like to. And then I'm gonna go here and I can write my own description, blah, 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 right? And I'm gonna tell them about myself. And then what I would probably do is I would change the sharing settings here so that anyone can look at it. Now anyone in Albany can look at this. Oops, I'm also gonna copy the link. So right here, I'm gonna grab the link of my sample presentation that I've done. And then I'm gonna go back to this introduce me slide. And I'm gonna tell them, here's mine. And I'm going to turn this into a link to my slideshow. So I'm gonna highlight that. I'm gonna use this little link tool right here. And I'm gonna paste in the address to my slideshow. So now when my students go there, you can see I'm gonna close that up. When they go here, they can link and they can go to my slideshow and see it as a sample. So that's what I would probably do even before I go to Google Classroom and assign this. I wanna assign the copy that links them to my slideshow. So that gives you a little idea of kind of my thought process through creating a template and how I would assign it to students. Maybe I'll just see if any. I know we only have about five minutes left, but Rich, are you still around? If you're still around, any questions that come up from that very quick, very fast kind of tour of my thought process of creating an assignment for students?
This question is, well, not directly related to that, but a follow-up question to earlier. You mentioned an updatable template even after distribution, and somebody was looking around on your slideshow for it and wasn't sure where to locate it.
Yeah, let me show you where that is. So the slideshow that I was talking about is here on the website. It's under Google Slides. And if you go down to videos, I've actually found some really great videos about slides. And so it's right here, how to make a student digital interactive notebook. This is tells you how to allow updates to your slideshow show up for students. Yeah. There's also a couple of webinars I've gone to in the last couple of weeks that were great, so I just linked those as well.
When using Google Slides, how do I make sure the video is embedded? So I'm not sure if they're asking embedded versus a link. I mean, if you put a link on there, they would click on the link and it would take them to YouTube or whatever videos.
Right. So again, if my students are, if I embed it by using the, the YouTube link, right? Then if I'm in if I just click this right now, and I'm in editing mode, I don't know that it'll play, but when the kids are in present mode, when they're looking at it in present mode, that video should just be, you should be able to just watch it right there from within the slideshow, and they don't have to open a separate link. So oops, I'm not sure that's gonna work for me because, yeah. So right there, I could play the video from within. So if you go to present mode, sorry. If you go to present mode, you should be able to test that out and make sure that the video is embedded.
Yeah, and make sure you're not just, when you're actually trying to put the video on, you're using the insert a video rather than just pasting the link directly on the page. That's all I see for now.
Okay. Yeah, if questions come up, you're creating slideshows and you have other questions, definitely use our help request form. We are trying to kind of streamline those, like I said earlier, and more primary questions for now are coming to me and more secondary are going to Rich, although we're relying on each other as well, or if we each get questions we don't know about, we're talking to each other, but send them our way.
I'm going to make a quick plug. Our next 10:30 PD is on Google Forms. If you're unfamiliar, Google Forms is a way that typically you use it to do surveys and stuff, but it also could be made to grade quizzes, either self-grading, auto-grading quizzes. You could also, I'm thinking about a way where you can use it to grade like essay tests in a quick manner. Versus if you assign an essay, I'm not saying an essay, quickly scroll through them, the responses, instead of having to open up each doc separately. So should be helpful, and even to make pre-existing worksheets to digitize them in a way that students can submit work on the Google form. So come back at 10:30.
Thanks, everybody.